Hello, I'm Lee Povey,
And I'm Steve Mellor.
and we are two high performers who have transitioned from the world of sport to business as high-performance executive and leadership coaches to those looking to take themselves and their companies to new heights,
The road to success can seem like a lonely one at times.
especially for a founder.
So we decided to form the Founders Catalyst, a show that provides the very support system necessary for founders, leaders, and high performers like you to receive the coaching, community, and catalyst required to ignite your journey.
To be clear, this is no place for fluffy content that only covers the highlights of achieving an ultimate goal.
Instead, our mission is to deliver the difficult conversations that most people may be afraid to have. The ones laced with truth, vulnerability,
And impactful insights from our first-hand experiences in the trenches with founders and leaders operating at the highest stakes.
You don't have to go it alone through the highs and lows of leadership and business ownership anymore.
Let us be the catalyst that you, your company, and your entire ecosystem need to excel in unprecedented ways.
This is the Founders Catalyst. Hi mate, how are you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. I thought I'd come in with tons of energy to begin with today. Not too low a level, just like really bring up the pitch and get us all focused on performance, because we're talking about performance today, and you and I have been chatting before we press record, and the fact that you and I are adamant about operating in the world of high performance, and people will hear a term like that, and some may have an assumption because of their experiences with high performance. Others may feel very uncertain of what that is because of their lack of experience with high performance. And so a place for us that I thought we could just start today is get really simple with it. And let's just define performance, what it means to perform. And I'm going to pass it over to you because you've actually helped me a lot in the importance of putting this front and center for us as coaches about the spaces that we operate in as high performers. So when, Lee, I say to you, define what we mean by performance, what comes to mind?
Well, firstly, I'm glad that you're coming with lots of energy. I was back in the UK a week ago, and my performance was obliterated by lack of sleep. So now I've had some good sleeps. I'm back. I'm ready to get stuck into one of my favorite subjects.
Love it.
I think the first thing is it's easy for us to hide behind buzzwords. So you'll hear leaders and coaches talk about concepts, but they don't actually, and this is why I love that you want us to really expand on and explain and deep dive into what do we mean by performance. Because often I hear coaches and I hear consultants and I hear leaders talk about these things without really understanding what it means. And they've heard somebody say, right, high performance or performance. So they just say to their team, right, we're a performance team. Great, what does that mean? So to me, I think it's what resonates with me the most was the British cycling approach of marginal gains. And then I think, having worked with some very high-level sports coaches and entrepreneurs, I've taken this to another level as well. So the marginal gains part is looking at everything we do and thinking, how can I do this better? And the term they actually coined was the aggregation of marginal gain. So you're looking at everything you do and thinking, how can I improve by 1, 2, 3, 4% here, so that when you add it all together, we get quite large increases in what we're able to do. And in that setting, it was cycling. So how do you get a little bit stronger? How do you improve your diet? How do you do things like take your pillows with you, or when applicable, take your mattress with you, so you're sleeping in the same environment, so you can really control things to get the best outcomes by controlling as much of the process as possible. And then where I like to add to that, especially in my entrepreneur space, is also what are the huge gains that other people haven't yet seen? And I get very lucky. I work with people that often their talent is vision, and they can see things, the kind of Steve Jobs of the world that can see where we're going to before everybody else has got there. And when you add these two concepts together, so you're adding the what's the big gain, and then you're adding the how do we make sure that we're optimizing, and I know that's a word that you love, optimizing every part of what we're doing to come up with the best outcome possible. And that's what I mean by performance. And I want to surround myself with people that live that life. I coach people that live that life. So they're looking at all areas of their life. If I'm coaching somebody, we might also be talking about what is the physical training they're doing? What is the emotional training they're doing? Are they doing things like breath work and meditation? Are they taking care of their health? Are they eating? All of this to set them up to be able to do their best cognitive performance in a work setting. And I come from this ethos from elite sports of everything is up to being challenged. When I first moved to America, I was watching a cycling coach run a track session that I was joining in. We did this warm up, and at the finish of the warm up, I said to the coach, "Why did we do that?" And their response was, "Well, that's the way we always do it." And I was like, "Okay, great. But for what reason did we do that particular type of warm up?" Because the warm up was excessive and not really, in my mind, relevant to the training session we were going to do afterwards. And it got competitive, and people were racing each other at the end of the warm up, which is, it's a warm up, it's not a race. So I questioned the coach, and the coach couldn't answer it because they didn't understand the concept. They were just, this is the way we've always done it. This is the way we're always going to do it. I want to surround myself with people that challenge that and question it and go, why are we doing this? Did this work for us for a period of time? Now we need to do something different. Does this still work? And they're looking at all the aspects of what they do with this open mind of, does this serve us still? Is this the best way to do it? And that's what we see in elite sports, which is why typically in most sports, world records keep getting broken, times, distances, abilities and performances keep getting improved because people are looking at what they're doing and thinking, is there a better way of doing it? Right. And now, especially in the world of elite sports and in the world of business, we have so many tools that allow us to actually capture data about what we're doing in really meaningful ways. You know, as a founder, you can run an advertising campaign on Meta and you can see who's responding, how engaged they are, how long they're looking at your advert for. And you can look at that and you can relate that to your CAC, so your cost of customer acquisition, and you can go, are our adverts performing effectively? We have the data to know that. And for me, a big part of this is letting go of our own egos, where people attach themselves to philosophies and concepts. And this is what I would see, especially in the sports world, and I see it in the leadership world of, this is my leadership style, or this is my training philosophy. And what I like us to do instead is to just see everything as an idea. Because ideas, I can change ideas. Whereas opinions and philosophies, they feel more rooted to me as a person. And when I start saying, this is my training philosophy, I'm saying, this is mine. Instead of, well, this is the ideas of how we currently train. There's a big difference between those two statements.
Definitely. And this is a great time for us to even mention that this will be one of two parts of this topic of performance. We're going to get more into the role of performance in that of the leader in the following episode, but we felt as though it made a ton of sense just to really set the table from this more definition standpoint. And I was taking copious notes while you were talking. I don't know whether our listeners were, but taking lots of notes, because the one thing I wanted to do is just be able to piggyback off each one of them now and kind of maybe double click on each one actually. Firstly, that's the first time you've shared that British cycling definition around the aggregation of marginal gains, and for me, it speaks volumes to me just coming from sport as well. And one of the hardest things I always found working with athletes was getting them to see that and getting them to accept that on a day-to-day basis. Hey, where did you get better today? Maybe the stopwatch, all it did was tell you that you were slower today. Maybe that's all it told you. And it's really hard on days like that for you to be able to say, yeah, that was a great session. I did really good today. I got something from that. When every part of your every part of your mindset is just screaming, what a waste of my time. I didn't get better today. Why did we bother doing that, et cetera, et cetera. Because what you did once you started talking about those aggregate marginal gains is that you then presented just 4 or 5 examples of where someone may be able to see some of those gains and see some of that growth, and only really scratching the surface, knowing the lifestyle of an athlete by some of the ones you presented. We really were just scratching the surface. And that immediately just brings up this notion of how all-encompassing performance is, how absolutely exhaustive it is. Not exhausting. It can be exhausting, don't get me wrong, but exhaustive it is that there really is no stone that we can't find an argument to turn. There really isn't. There's always going to be, hey, when was the last time you looked over here and looked at this part of your business? When was the last time you had that conversation with that member of your team that you insist you have that great relationship with, but you feel it's suddenly become a little bit frayed? When was the last time you had a real chat? Not a, hey, we need to have our weekly this or our monthly that. A real chat where you sat down and you put work to one side and you reminded yourselves that you are 2 humans at the heart of all the work that you're doing. There's so many areas that we are performing that by simply shifting our mindset into a headspace of, hey, this is in fact performance. And with that performance comes, like you said, some of these aggregate marginal gains that if we're willing to look closely enough, they are being compiled every single day. And would you, I want to throw this, Brad, at you now because I'm really interested to go here. Would you say that when we ignore certain areas within our days that could be truly assessed from a performance standpoint, that those sort of aggregate margins can be 2 to 3 times more costly when you think about some of the gains that we're actually making by giving it the attention it deserves?
Yeah, let's take a step back as to, I want to define performance again. So performance for me is collective processes that have an outcome. So we do these processes, that's the performance that then leads to an outcome. And often people focus on the outcome and not the processes. And I want people to come back and focus on what are the processes that you can do better and better and better, and the outcome will take care of itself. The outcome is a byproduct of the processes. And it's exactly the same for entrepreneurship, for founders, as it is for sports people. You know, improving your squat by 20% as a track sprint cyclist is likely to have an outcome on how much power you can output on the bike. Improving your CAC by 20% is going to have an outcome on the bottom line of your business, and you can make more money. So first we think about, okay, the processes and then the outcome. And then we've got to look and go, what's the emotion that tends to stop us from looking at these things? And I think often it's fear. It's fear of change. And you mentioned athletes struggling with change, or why am I doing this? One of the hardest things for me as a sports coach, and now one of the hardest things for me as a coach of leaders and high performers, is people understanding that change is going to be okay. We get very comfortable in, this is the way that I've done it, and when I do it this way, I have this, what I believe to be predictable outcome. And if I think about my own founder career, you know, there's a way that I thought I should do marketing originally. And now I look at marketing completely differently. Because to begin with, there was a certain response I got to it. Now I'm just curious. And I think flipping that switch from being afraid of, oh my God, if I don't do it the way that I've always done it, I will go backwards. And this alludes to what you were getting to at the end of that, end of your comment there. It's this, what's the opportunity cost if I don't try doing it the other way? So often we get stuck in the, what's the cost of change? But we look at it from the wrong side of the lens. We look at it from the side of the lens of the fear side of, oh, if I change, it might not work as well. Instead of the opportunity side of the lens, which is, but what am I leaving on the table by not changing? What am I leaving on the table by not taking this new approach? And the leaders that I most admire are the ones that look at that size of the puzzle or that side of the puzzle, and they go, my God, look at this opportunity that I'm leaving on the table because I'm not being courageous enough to take some risks. And some of these things I try may not work. However, without trying them, I can't get the data to even see whether they work or not. And this is what I would see. This is what I see in kind of executive level and below, when the founder is coming up and saying, right, this is what we're going to do. This is the direction we're going to go in. And I hear all this pushback of, we've never tried that before, or how do we know this is going to work? And nobody else is doing it this way. Well, that's how the world moves forward. At some point, somebody says, I'm going to do it differently. You know, back in tribal times, we would have to chase, physically catch an animal. And then somebody picked up a rock and went, why don't I throw this rock at it and see what happens? And they probably got ridiculed and everyone, oh, that's stupid. Why would you do that? And that's human history. We have a certain fear set level, and to be really high performers, we've got to be prepared to challenge our fear set. We've got to be prepared to say, this is going to be uncomfortable. And we need to surround ourselves with people that want to step into being uncomfortable instead of staying stuck, for want of a better word, in the comfort of what they already know.
Yeah, and firstly, I'm seeing that my last question was a very loaded question, so I apologize for that. But
Bring it on.
But at the same time, I'm glad that you brought us around to that notion of fear, because the story that I wanted to share was that, you know, difference between you and I do a lot of public speaking, and I'm a professional speaker, and one thing that I would use this term optimal performance all the time when I was speaking. Again, very assumptively, assuming that, hey, optimal performance means the same to you guys, right? As it does to me. No, it doesn't, Steve. And I started joking with folks like, optimal performance for some people is just not getting in trouble today. You know, like they say, did I get through the day without making a mistake? Heck yeah. That's an optimal day. That is the case for some people. And something that I slowly then, when I started to realize of this blind spot of mine, and I really got curious with it, is I just thought, okay, really, for us to even be in the vicinity of optimal performance, it starts with that other side, like you said. It starts with that other side of saying, am I willing to acknowledge through not taking action, through staying still, through remaining stuck, am I willing to just simply accept that that is going to suddenly just close off opportunities for growth and for potential optimal performance? And again, that's actually completely shifted how I show up on a stage and speak, because as much as I like to highlight the fact that I want optimal performance for everybody, I realize I'm a pretty useless speaker coming in talking about optimal performance, because we're not ready. We're not ready for optimal performance. We need to be talking about the right here, right now, what's right in front of us, and how we can maybe get unstuck, or how we can take that initial step. And that goes back now to some of those initial insights that you provided around your definition for performance, in that if we can just get into that state of curiosity, if we can just sit there and say, where are we still not growing? Where are we still not making gains? How can we be curious about that? Because again, going back to that idea with the athletes too, is that the athletes would define the success of their day around how fast they were. And it's like, gosh, that is such a tough that is such a tough lens to look at wins and losses and growth and no growth through. And they were so hard on themselves when they wouldn't see it. You know, present company included, I was the same. I was that same athlete, and it's taken me so long to realize. But now that I do, I see the value in it, and obviously you do in the work that you do, is just to be able to say, what are we not looking at where we could be experiencing growth, and we're so bogged down with this one area, or we're so excited about this one area over here that we're actually neglecting this thing over here that will eventually come back around and bite us if we're not willing to just give it the attention it deserves. Which brings us just to the importance of community. And you've said that a couple times now, is that performance really cannot be optimized without it existing with others, around others, through others' perspectives. I'm curious, mate, and you may have some other insights to provide just from what I initially shared, but I'd love for us to also now go to maybe just some examples or maybe a story over the years where you were able to see firsthand what the difference that it can have when you immerse yourself around others through performance.
Yeah. When I look back on my cycling career before I was a coach, I realize now I wasn't in love with cycling. A lot of the people that I was around, their life was based around cycling. For me, that bucket in my life is actually competition, and cycling was the vehicle for my competition. And what that meant was I wasn't that motivated to train by myself. I needed to create community to train because I needed some competition in the training itself to make it fun and enjoyable for me. I needed to be putting myself on the line against other people as much as I needed to be putting myself on the line against myself. So I think early on, without realizing what it was, now it's easy to look back in hindsight and go, oh, that's the process that I was going through. Early on, I just created groups. And I actually became a cycling coach because I would create training groups and then people would go, okay, what training are we doing today? I'm like, I don't know. So I had to learn how to be a coach, because then that would attract more people to come to the training group, because then they're coming and going, okay, I come here and I get some support and we're bashing these ideas backwards and forwards and we've got somebody that is leading this process. So I've always been that natural leader and created that community around me. However, as I get older, I have less need to lead and more need to be around people that have similar aims to me and similar standards to me, and are calling from me what I'm calling from them. They have the same high standards for me, if not higher, than I do. And I want to walk into a room now and feel like I'm the dumbest person in the room and not the smartest or the most knowledgeable or the most capable. Because I want to walk into rooms and be inspired.
Mm.
And I think part of that for me has been letting go of this belief that I have to be the smartest person in the room, because that brings me safety. Coming back to fear. I didn't want to be shown up. I didn't want to be dumb. I wanted to, and I got a position. I think I got, some kind of feeling of power of like, okay, these people need me more than I need them. And there's a vulnerability in walking into a room and needing the people in the room more than they need you, or at least perceiving that. We all need each other. But walking in that room and going, I hope these people have more to offer me than I have to offer them. Yeah. So that I can step out of the paradigm of I need to be the smart one. I need to be the leader. I need to be the one who's in control. I need to walk in and go, I'm going to be dumb. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. And people are going to support me there. I think it's one of the reasons I switched from cycling to go-kart racing, because I was dumb as a go-kart racer. I didn't know how to do it. Right. And I had to find a coach, and I had to ask other people in the community, hey, how do I drive faster around this part of the track? And what am I doing wrong? And they'll be on the track with me and they'll give me feedback. And my belief is when I surround myself with those kind of people, we all become better. Like that, the rising tide rises all boats. We all become better, and there's room for all of us to succeed. And it's less about me beating you and more about us pushing each other to be our best versions. Yep. It's why we've created the Founders Catalyst group. It's why I have a intensive that goes to the group. There's a small group where founders get together and they're not in competition with each other. They're there to support each other being the best versions of themselves. And that might include some challenge. I want to be in a position where people challenge me. I'm in an entrepreneurship group. And I was talking about, hey, I really want to get on these big podcasts because I have this message to share and it's really important to me. I think we can do things better. And they went, great. Well, what are you going to do with it afterwards? And it was, for me, this topic was about men's work. Mm-hmm. And they're like, what are you going to do with it afterwards? I'm like, oh God, they're right. They're challenging me that really at the moment, my need to be on these big podcasts is about ego. Because I do have a message to share, but also I want people to see me and understand that I have this valuable message. And they're challenging me going, great, well, how are you going to support the men that are going to listen to this message? And they're right, I need to put that in place. So that would be something I'll do, is to create a platform beyond what I currently do for that. You can only get that when you are willing to be challenged and when you're willing to place yourself into circumstances, groups, community settings where people will challenge you and you know they're challenging you from love. And this was how I was as a sports coach. My athletes would come to me, why are we doing this training, coach? And I'm worried about how this is going to work, coach. One of the worst things for track sprinters, and you hit the nail on the head, is to go slower. They come to a training session, they're looking at they've got little computers on that tell them how fast they're going and the power they're outputting, and their power's going down or their speed's going down. Oh my God, coach, the training's not working. However, when you're in a big hypertrophy block, and for those that don't know physiology, hypertrophy is when we're in a block where we are deliberately looking to build more muscle. That type of training is very, very energy, high energy absorption. I can't think of the right way to say this now. It takes a lot of energy to build muscle. Right. So when you're doing your track sessions, your cycling sessions, after these exhaustive and heavy weight training sessions, your performance on the bike goes down. As a coach, I know that's okay. That's what we should be expecting. I need their training in the gym to be so destructive that their on-bike stuff will go down, and then I need them to trust that that's part of the process. And when we come out of that training, because they now have more muscle mass, they can now produce more power. When they're better rested, their performance will take another leap upwards. And this is the same for us when we're learning cognitively. We're learning a new skill. We get exhausted and we feel like we can't perform at the same level. However, once we master that skill, bang, now we have that up jump in performance and what we're capable of doing. And it takes us being around people that can challenge us, that can support us as we're going through these difficult moments, to know that we'll come out the other side of it.
Yeah, when I first started the business, I left swim coaching. Really had no idea what this world of coaching was outside of sport. And one thing I learned really quickly was that I could either use that uneducation that I have, that lack of education that I have towards it, I could actually use that as a positive. Or I could use it as a negative. I could sit there and just, woe is me. I don't know anything, blah, blah, blah. Or I could just step into rooms. And, we have so many, it's really a metaphor in a way. Picking up a phone is stepping into the room. Hopping on a whatever chat online is stepping into a room. These are all versions of stepping into rooms. Like literally early, right before we did this, 30 minutes before we recorded, I set up a call with someone that I heard speak at a huge speaking event a couple of months ago, who's been there, done it in the speaking industry for 10, 15 years, New York bestseller, all this kind of stuff, because I just wanted to be on the low end and I wanted to be asking questions to someone on the high end and say, help me see my blind spots, help me see what I don't see, because that's going to help me be a better performer. And I can't help but use your insights there as well in sport and trying to explain to our poor listeners about hypertrophy and all that kind of thing. But the idea of muscle, so much of what we do is around training muscle memory. It's all the same. It's all behavioral. It's all instinctual. It's all habitual stuff. And when we think about that notion of how are you working some of these performance muscles within your day, what does a performance muscle even look like right now within your work? Have you ever even thought about the fact that what you're doing is some form of version of performance, that this is actually being assessed to a standard, either by those around you or maybe even on some subconscious level by yourself? Maybe you are actually assessing a standard that you want from yourself, but because you're not actually pinpointing what you are performing in and how you are performing, you're feeling bad or you're feeling less than about something that you don't even know what it is you're assessing. You don't. And I think we can all speak to that. I'd like to think anyone listening to this can. I'm sure you can speak to that too, mate. It's just this notion of like, you feel down, you feel crappy, you don't feel as though you're seeing the improvements or whatever it is that you want to see. But the last time you actually got specific around defining how you're assessing performance, when was that exactly? Have you ever done it? this is why so much of what we do, especially in this founders world, is performance associated. And the sooner we start to define and become significantly aware of the way we are performing and our business is performing, the better it is, not only for ourselves, but to your point in what we've just been talking about, the community and the people around us.
Yeah. Often in the work I do, I'm bringing people out of their business to look back into their business so that they work on their business rather than in their business. Mm-hmm. It's so easy for us to get caught up in our day-to-day, right, this is the task list I have to do, and performance is getting my task list done. However, that's not really optimal performance.
Right.
That's just busy work. Optimal performance is going, what's the most important thing on my task list? Do I even still need to do this? Could somebody else be doing this? Can I give this to somebody else? Is my optimal performance empowering somebody else to do this? And that might mean it takes me a little bit longer to coach somebody else to do this. So to begin with, it feels like it's suboptimal. To go back to my track cycling thing of, right, I'm taking on this extra training load to eventually be able to go faster. It's the same thing. I'm taking on this extra emotional, mental load of coaching somebody else so that eventually I have more room to do the things that are going to be more optimal for me. A tool I like to use with companies when we're thinking about this optimal is, what's your hourly rate? And we've discussed this before. What's your hourly rate as a founder? What's your hourly rate as an executive? What's your hourly rate as a manager? And what's somebody else in the company's hourly rate? Now, if their hourly rate is $25, $50, $100, and yours is $500 an hour, why are you doing something that they could be doing? That's inefficient for the company. Mm-hmm. You should only be doing things that somebody who's being paid $500 an hour can do. And anything less than that, somebody else should be doing that. Yep. And I think it's stepping back is something we need to do a lot if we're really going to have optimal performance. We get so stuck in the day-to-day. It's stepping back. And stepping back typically needs somebody else outside to look in and support us. Be that a coach, be that a consultant, be that a mentor, be that a group of colleagues. Because we get tempted to get so stuck into the day-to-day of working in our business, making sure our task list gets done, making sure the things that we promised are going to get done. It's quite hard to step back and go, what am I missing? That's the value of what we do. I typically, when I do my engagements, include a group call in it where we'll get the leadership team together. And part of that is to give them an opportunity to have those kind of discussions that typically they're so busy running their own departments that they miss some of this discussion. And also, often in those discussions, we're talking about how do they support each other? How do they get on? And we're realigning them as a team to be more optimal. And more optimal from an emotional point of view. Like, what is it I need to let go of? What are the fears that are getting in the way of what I should be doing? What's my ego that's getting in the way of what I should be doing? And creating this environment where people really feel supported and held. And there was something else I wanted to come back to that you mentioned that I think is important. And maybe this is my dyslexia, or maybe I'm just a pedantic Brit. Language is really important to me. One of the things that pisses me off in the coaching world is that coaches invent these weird languages. And you're talking about, you go and do your workshops, you do your speaker presentations, and you're talking about optimal performance. What does that mean to the people in the audience? Yeah. And if we're really going to be high performers, we need to be able to stop. We need to be able to explain it in such a way that everybody in that room knows what it means. What does optimal performance mean? What does it mean to them? And as you say, depending on where the journey you're at, optimal performance might be making sure you get up on time, you have 3 meals that day, you get to work and you come home. That might be optimal performance for where you're at in your journey. And at the scale of the people that I work on or work with, that might be, having 15 conversations in a day, 2 training sessions in a day, seeing their kids, seeing their partner, not just eating 3 meals, but eating these prepared 3 meals that have just the right balance of macronutrients. And there's no judgment between the two. It's where you're at right now, and are you on a path to keep pushing the envelope? Mainly because that's where the fun is. Right?
Right.
If we just keep doing the same thing over and over again, we're going to keep getting the same results. Einstein's definition of insanity, or supposedly Einstein's definition of insanity, who knows whether he really said it or not.
He just labeled a whole bunch of stuff with his name on
It's been appropriated to him. I'm not sure whether he said it or not, but the concept still holds, doesn't it?
It does, and I think it is important because we're starting to flirt with what we're going to cover in that next episode now, in terms of the human and the leader and the performance through their lens. And I think this is a great place. Two things I want to do here. Firstly, is just encourage you, obviously, to take the time to listen to the next episode, because we're going to get into, I think, a lot more applicable things when it comes to what you can be doing in your day. But the second thing is something that Lee and I want to start doing with these episodes, is leaving you with an actual catalyst and speaking from our own perspectives. And I'm actually going to steal one from you right now from what you just shared, is that through the aggregate work, through that willingness to actually look at things from an aggregation, that's the fun. That's the fun. If we're willing to actually be patient enough and disciplined enough to focus on the aggregate marginal gains, that is actually where the fun is. So that's my encouragement to anybody listening, is just to start focusing on some of those aggregates. How about yourself, mate?
I think a takeaway from this, and also where I'm at in life right now, is I'm doing really well as a coach. And I don't mean that to mean boastful. I mean, I have great clients. I'm doing well. I'm making good money. And there was a point where, for me, the focus was on getting new clients. Now I have room for one more company engagement. That's it. So I don't need a bunch more clients right now. What I want to focus on right now is being a great coach. So I am working on my business right now with, how do I make all of my processes better? How do I make the initial conversation better with a new client? How do I arm them with the tools to succeed in my coaching? How do I work on my coaching continually so I can be a better coach? So I think the takeaway from this part of the conversation for me is, what processes or what tools do you have to look at your processes to stop and go, where can I make those gains? Where can I put those gains together? So to take the aggregation of those marginal gains, what areas of my personal performance can I be looking at and thinking and questioning, how could I do this better? And then how do I find the support to be able to do that? Whether it be a mentor, whether it be a coach like me and you, whether it be colleagues, whether it be a group that you go in, where are you going to go and find the support you need? Whether it be listening to podcasts that can help you. What are you doing to upskill yourself and surround yourself with the right kind of community so that you can push your game forward, so that you can work on all of the processes that you do in a way that really supports you? And then lastly, just a reminder, fear's okay. We all should have fear. Fear is a normal human reaction. It's okay to be afraid of change. It's okay to be afraid that things might not work. And don't let that stop you.
There's fun. There's fun in fear. There's fun in fear. We're going to leave it at that and set everybody up for this next episode. But listen, one thing I want to really just remind us as we leave you is we want feedback. We're all about feedback in this world, and there's no better place to provide that feedback than if you head to LinkedIn and you look for the Founders Catalyst group page on there, or you can just go to Lee's profile or mine and you'll be able to find ways of getting to that page there. We'll also be leaving it in the show notes. Make sure you're leaving your feedback there. Let us know, how are these episodes hitting for you? What is that catalyst that you're taking from our time together? And with that direction from myself, we'll see you in the next episode of the Founders Catalyst, and we appreciate you for listening. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks again for listening to the show. If you like what you heard, appreciated the witty banter, and of course, appreciated the quality of the insights we provided, please take a moment to give us a 5-star rating.
It helps us reach a larger audience so we can support more people just like you. Be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform.
There will never be a better time than now to start investing in yourself, so be sure to act upon what you took from this episode and let us know how it goes. We love hearing from our audience.
From Steve Mellor and myself, Lee Povey, thanks for listening and being you.